Hi everyone and welcome to another BricksMembers tutorial. Today I want to talk about content structures, what it is and how to use it. So what are content structures? At first, you have the general content available in WordPress. These are pages, posts, terms and custom post types, and all of them work perfectly together with BricksMembers. You can restrict the content there, etc. But maybe you want to have content that uses hierarchical structures, for example, to sell courses where you have a structure like course, module, lesson, etc. But you can build those structures however you want and you can name them however you want. And this can be useful, obviously, to structure your content, but also for other things like drip content, for example. If you, for example, want that one lesson becomes available after the user completes the lesson before, then you need a structure for that to somehow set boundaries so that, for example, you only complete the next lesson within a certain course, etc. And also a very important feature, progress tracking. There you also need content structures because you usually track the progress per course, but in BricksMembers you can also track it per module, per structure, whatever you want there. And obviously that's a feature that you most likely want to have when you sell membership sites. And now there's also the way how other platforms and plugins handle that. And it's usually that you have fixed hierarchical structures, like usually it's course, module, lesson. So at first you only have 3 levels there, but what if your content reaches a bit deeper, if you want to have more levels, then that can be a problem. And also you always use fixed names. Like for example, on my own membership site that I sell via YouTube, Learn with Pascal, there I have at first normal course, module, lesson structure, but I also use a video post type there because in some lessons I have multiple videos. But additionally, I also have some mini courses in there that I call series and episodes instead of courses. So there I also want that to be reflected, and I can't just put that into the regular course, lesson, module structure. And that's why when I created BricksMembers, I wanted to solve that by letting you create as many content structures as you want and also decide how deep they are. I do limit it to 6 levels maximum, but I think you usually don't need more. And if you need some, then maybe put it on the roadmap. Maybe you can put a level more. And that leads me to how to do it, like how to create content structures in BricksMembers. So if you're in BricksMembers here, you have this content structures page, and there you can set everything up. Now, there's one thing I want to do at first to show you something. Like right now, you see here when we create a content structure, we have the structure name, the numbers of levels, which you can choose here up to 6 levels as mentioned before. And it also automatically fills everything out for you for standard stuff that you would most likely use, like standard names. Then we have the admin menu icon. You can choose whatever icon the structure should get here in the WordPress menu. And we also have a custom permalink slug, which is not super important. It will, if you don't use the slug, automatically use the level 1 slug here. So in this example, course. But if you want to customize that, you can totally do that. And now there's one thing missing, and that is when you go to the settings page and you turn modules on, then you have this enable progress tracking system there. So let's click Save Settings. Saved now. And now when I go back to content structures, you also see that field here, which says progress tracking level. And this is where you have to decide on which level the progress for the user has to be tracked. So for example, 2 levels here, then I can either select course or lesson. You would definitely not select course there. Usually you would do lesson here, because then you have multiple lessons, and whenever a user completes a lesson, then the logic looks up how many lessons in total are there, how many lessons the user completed, and then it can calculate the percentage, or also let you output how many lessons of how many total lessons have been completed, etc. And now if we have, let's say 4 levels here, then you see I can select more, course, module, lesson, video, 6 levels. I can go even deeper, course, section, module, lesson, video. So anything you want here. And that is important. because if we would not define a level where it could track the progress, then the logic would not really know what to calculate the percentage on, right? Otherwise, you could, for example, put a completed checkbox on a module template and also on a lesson template. Then some users would complete the module, but others lesson, and then the whole logic wouldn't know what to calculate the percentage of the progress based on. So it would be a complete mess, and that's why it's important to select this progress level, tracking level here. So I would say let's actually create a structure here now to see, to show you how it works. I would just call the structure here courses. Then I select the number of levels. Let's select 4 levels for now. Here is what I have on my own website. Progress tracking level, let's set it on lesson. It's usually what you have. Let's select a admin menu icon. Yeah, actually course here, that's good. Permalink slug, I will leave that empty now because it uses the slug here from the level 1 here in that case. And then we're already ready. And now when I select create structure, or I click it, then the structure has been created. And now you see this new menu item here in WordPress. So if I click on that, it opens our content structures interface. And that lets you create all that content. And so now, for example, I can go in here, I can select edit mode. This is important because BricksMembers also optimizes the performance of certain structures. Because as you can imagine, for example, let's say you would use structured content by building hierarchies directly with WordPress pages or posts. Then let's say you want to show only the course name where the lesson is currently in when you're on a lesson page, then you would need to loop up there to find the course that the lesson is in, and only to show that name. That is multiple queries. But BricksMembers stores all that data in a much more efficient way, and therefore you actually only need one query always to figure that out, and oftentimes actually none, because we optimize that with object caching, with a registry per page load so that some data is not loaded twice, and we also use batch loading for query loops if you set that up so that it's actually as fast as it gets. So actually a lot of the content is just loaded in one query always, and that makes it super efficient. Anyway, that's why this edits mode is so important, because every time you save edits here, it computes all that data so that everything is perfectly available in the front end and everything runs fast. Now, obviously, when you create your content for the first time, usually, and there are no users on the website yet, etc., then the front end doesn't matter for now. So it's not that important to run the computations every time. And that's why when you hover here over the Save Edits button, we also have a no recompute feature. So if you click that, it will just save your edits, but it will not run any of those computations. So you see now changes saved, computations skipped, because then maybe you just want to create multiple courses. You have to save so many times just to ensure that nothing gets lost in case maybe you lose internet connection or something like that. And that's why we have this little no recompute function there. Anyway, we're in save edits now, so let me show you how it works. Essentially, you have these 2 buttons here, create course or add new course here at the top. It doesn't matter which one you use. So let's just use that, and let's just use here the name WP Mastery course again. Yeah, it's in the morning. I'm not best at typing right now. I got it now. And then you can, of course, fill out all those fields here. In case you have a course video, for example, you could use our custom field here, video URL, to put in the video URL, ID, or the embed code, plus the video duration, the video image, and the featured image. And you can also set required levels here. So let's say, for example, all access, and maybe, let's say bronze tier as well. You can also select a category or a tag if you want to, but I don't do that for now. And then you select create publish, and now we have created our course. But of course, all the content needs to go in there, and for that we can, for example, create the first module here by selecting that. So let's say module 1, just something simple. I won't fill out all these other fields here, it's always the same. And what you can do already is here I can select this checkbox here, inherit required levels from parent, create and publish, and now we see it already got the same required levels here as the course has. So you don't extra have to select the same levels again, especially that's useful if you have multiple ones. Now you see we have the first module, and then that module I can create a lesson. So let's just type in lesson 1. And also inherit required levels from parent, create publish. So now in lesson, I can put video in here, video 1, inherit. Okay, and there we essentially have a very simple course structure now with one module, one lesson, one video. Of course, I can now put in more lessons here, lesson 2, lesson 3. And I can also put videos in there, so video 2, video 3. And now let's say I have multiple videos in lesson 3, then I would put in video 4 here, for example. There you can see lesson 3, video 3, video 4. You can also collapse all that to make it all look a bit nicer. And you see it's also all color coded, like courses like top level posts are always red, then orange. The modules or the second level post, third level is always yellow, and green for fourth levels, and it continues if you have a 6 level structure. And what's also important here to mention is that you should start thinking in terms of top level, level 2, level 3, or parent level, because when we have our dynamic tags here, you see that our identifiers or modifiers handle it like that. Like we use top level, we use parent level, we use level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, etc. Because you might choose completely different names here. Like maybe you don't call it course, maybe you don't call it module, lesson, video, so maybe you call it something completely different. Then of course it doesn't make sense if you would select course or module or so with those modifiers. That's why we keep it like that. You always select top level, level 2, level 3, or parent level or so with your dynamic tags, and also when it comes to query loop filters and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. We're not really like talking courses, modules here. It's a different language that we speak in BricksMembers. And yeah, if you want to get in here, you can make changes again. It's not set in stone. And after you created everything as you want to, you just select Save Edits. And now you see it save structure edits, and then it runs the computations here. This is where the progress percentage is on. So content navigation, this is all the navigation that I've been talking on before that stores the proper data so that we can access all the post data, etc. quickly. And you also saw the progress bar. This is there to recalculate the progress in case you do certain changes. Like for example, if you add a lesson to a post, then it has to recalculate the progress for the whole course for all students, because with a new lesson, of course, it would otherwise show the wrong percentages. Because now let's say a user already finished 100% of a course, but then you add a new lesson, then it would not be 100% anymore because the course just got extended, right? So that has to be recalculated there. And let me also show you my little test site here, which is based on my actual membership site. So when I click edit mode here and save edits, you see we have content navigation, progress tracking, and drip unlocks and computation. That is also important. Like when you have the drip module turned on, then it also has to recalculate certain drip unlocks, at least if you use prerequisites in your drip unlock rules. Because let's say you add a lesson somewhere at the beginning of a course or so, then a user would not have access anymore otherwise if the rule says that he has to complete the previous lesson always. Of course, it's also important to mention here that you can skip that, which is important for live sites, because otherwise your users might get frustrated. So we have in the drip content settings the reset and reassignment and preserve previously unlocked content options. That is important on live sites. You should usually use preserve previously unlocked content, because that means that it just always keeps all the unlocks for all users, even if it does those recomputations. Because if you would be in a reset and reassignment, and maybe one of your drip rules here would say under prerequisites require previous item, and then you add a new lesson, for example, at the beginning of a course, then essentially the student would lose access to all lessons. That should not happen, of course, on a live site, then the user would be pretty frustrated. So for that, keep the preserve previously unlocked content mode on, and then when any of those recomputations happen here on either your content structures, when you do some edits here to anything and it recomputates the drip, or you also do that on certain other settings pages where the drip has to be recomputed, then that won't happen. They will not lose access. They will just see there's a new lesson. And if you add multiple lessons, then of course the rule will apply again for those lessons. but they won't lose access to anything that they already had access to. That's really important here. And that's, I would say, everything you need to know about edit mode. There's nothing more, but you also have some options outside of edit mode that you can use here. So you always see what's grayed out and what's active and not. Like, for example, here you can just click this button here to show the post. You can click this button here to do some quick edits to the post, even if you're not in a content struct, if you're not in edit mode. Because, for example, you might want to add some categories or some other user levels or so, and for that we don't need those recomputations. That's why you can make those changes here even when edit mode is not active. And you can also open the normal WordPress post edit screen in case you, for example, want to have a few more options when it comes to editing the content here, like the post content field, because you can do that in quick edit, like by clicking on show content. You have a basic content field here. Maybe I will also extend that with some more features in the future. But yeah, it's pretty basic. So maybe sometimes you want to have full Gutenberg options here. In that case, you would use the normal WordPress editor. And you do have a few more options here on top. For example, the show hidden button. It doesn't do anything here for me right now because I don't have any hidden elements. But that's, for example, the case in case there are any unpublished posts or drafts. Yeah, it is a draft, like unpublished means draft, or private posts or anything that is not a published post in there. Then by clicking that button here, you ensure that all posts that are within any of the post types of that structure show up here, and you can do whatever you want with them, at least in edit mode. You do also have a search field here, which is pretty useful. So let's say I'm looking for everything resolve. Then you see it shows me everything that has resolve in the name, and even parents, like it shows all that hierarchically already. So I think that's quite powerful to quickly find some lessons or so instead of having to look through all your courses. So these are all the main things you need to know about content structures, but there is one more thing, and that's when I now go to my series structure here. Like currently in my test membership here, I don't have any parents assigned to all those lessons that you see here. And that's why you see them all below unassigned episode. So this is how it looks like whenever you have posts in that structure that don't have a parent. And now, of course, I want them to have a parent because otherwise I can't really do anything with those posts here. So we go into edit mode, then I add a new series. So let's say maybe editing breakdowns. Okay, you can select whatever user levels you want. Create and publish. And now, what's by the way also important to mention is when you click create and publish here, it's not published actually the post yet. It only gets published when you click on save edits. That's always the case. But what I wanted to show you is now I have these episodes here, or whatever posts you will call them on your side, and I want to assign them to this editing breakdowns series here. So let me select one. Then you see this little box popping up at the bottom. And here I can select assign parents. Of course, I forgot I have to save the edits before. So now I save the edits, go back into edit mode. And now when I click assign parent, then I can select editing breakdowns here, assign parents. And now you see it is assigned here to the editing breakdowns series. And you can also do that with multiple ones. Like I can select multiple ones here. So, okay, save edits. And now we have all those episodes here applied to the series or assigned to that series. And yeah, that's all you really have to know about content structures. What I would suggest doing next is to also have a look at all the BricksMembers dynamic tags here, because there you see what you can actually do also within those structures. Like here we have those BRM structure tags, actually quite a few, with lots of modifiers. And there you can display all sorts of content based on the structure, like next and previous items here, for example. Then the parent element, the parent posts, for example, like what I mentioned before, the titles and the links, the URLs, everything you want. You can display breadcrumbs that are based on the actual hierarchy of your current course or whatever you're in. You can select the index that you're in. It's, for example, good if you want to show like first course, second course or so. And index max, like there you could show the maximum number of courses. And of course, you also have all those boundaries here so that you can, for example, only show the next item within the current course, which would be top level here. So this is like the boundary. There, if like the top level is your course, then the course would be the boundary. And yeah, so pretty useful stuff. What I could also mention here by side is that we also have those BRM video tags. Like you see here, when I go to the quick edit modals, we have this video URL fields, and there I have, for example, now an ID from Gumlet where I host my videos. And for those custom fields, you can use those tags here to display those things in the front end, and not just of the current post, but here, for example, with BRM video URL and then top level, I can, for example, also show the URL or like the ID or whatever you typed into the URL field of the video of the top level post that the current lesson, for example, is in. If you're on a lesson page and you want to show the video, for example, in a header or so from the course, then you can do that here with that top level modifier. And like all sorts of other stuff here. Like this is pretty cool. Also BRM video image that works everywhere in Bricks, where you have image fields for dynamic data. And of course you can also modify them for only showing URL, ID, link, etc. and sizes. Video duration is available with all the modifiers you can imagine. So it's all there, everything you really need. So that's it for this tutorial. Also make sure to check our other ones, especially a user levels one that might be useful if you just watched the content structure tutorial. And of course, also consider subscribing for upcoming tutorials about BricksMembers and also general tips which will come soon about creating membership sites with WordPress.